So when you build an AI application, essentially what you're building is a closed box. The thing is, any AI app that you build needs to connect to other tools, need to be able to connect to Google Calendar, needs to be able to connect to database that you worked on for many hours and get data from. So get more context. It's very important that your AI application is not a secluded box, a closed-in box. So in this video, I'm going to show you step-by-step how to build your MCP server, Model Context Protocol. If you don't know what that is, I have a video here somewhere where I talked about Model Context Protocol, which is really hot and is the de facto way in which AIs are able to connect to different tools and get more information, data, and context. And that's what we're going to do in this video. By the end of this video, you're going to be able to actually build your own MCP server from scratch, ladies and gentlemen. And so without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Right, now it's time for us to get started and do lots of hands-on. So we're going to start building MCP server. Start with the MCP server development and do lots of hands-on. Okay, so there are a few things that we need to have, or you need to have set up on your computer in order for you to be able to do MCP server development. Right, so dev tools you'll need. You'll need to have VS Code, Visual Studio Code, which is a nice free IDE, one of the best in my opinion. And the beauty of this IDE is that it serves also as an MCP client for testing, which I'll show you as we go. And we're also going to install Python, or you should have Python installed, Claude Desktop. This is an easy MCP host with MCP client attached to it. So it's going to be easy for us to use and test our MCP servers as we build. Okay. And also we need to install UV for Python. This is dependency management. That it's way easier to deal with creating virtual environments and all of that in Python. Now you can use pip, but UV is probably the easiest, is the most used one when it comes to Python dependency management. Also, we need to install npm as well. This is Node Package Manager, which allows us to do certain things related to Node. Just make sure that you have an OpenAI API key or any model API key that you may want to use later. Okay, so this is just optional. If we end up using that, I will let you know. All right, so if you don't have VS Code installed, I encourage you to go to code.visualstudio.com, and this is what you will see most likely. Things change, but go ahead and install this open source AI code editor. Well, that's what they've added, AI code editor now. So things are moving towards the direction of AI, as you should know by now. So go ahead and download for Mac OS if you're on Mac. And because I'm on Mac, that's why it defaults to Mac, but if you are on Windows or Linux, it should show you your operating system. So go ahead and install that, download. It's a really good IDE. If you've never used it, it's amazing. Most of you probably have used it or already have that installed, but if not, just go ahead and install that. And the next thing is you need to have Python installed. It's really easy. Again, just go to python.org, downloads, and you can go to downloads for Windows, Macs, and other platforms. So go ahead and set up all of that locally. I'm not going to go through that because it's really easy to set up. Next thing you need to do is download Claude Desktop. This is what we're going to be using as an MCP host with MCP client attached to it. So it says beta as of recording of this video, but maybe by the time you're watching this video, it's no longer beta. So go ahead and install Claude Desktop, and that's what we're going to be using in this course. All right, so the next thing also is to install UV. Now again, you can use pip, but UV, it's going to be easy to deal with, and I encourage you to install that. This is a wonderful Python package management system or tool that allows you to do all sorts of things. So if you're on Mac or Linux, just go to this tab here and copy that and run on your terminal. Okay, if you are on your Windows, do the same thing. Use PowerShell and go follow the instructions here. Next, you go to nodejs.org, download, and download. In this case, it's for Mac, but click here. You can find Windows, Mac OS, Linux, or AIX. Okay, so whichever operating system you're using. Okay, and as you change, you can see things also change in terms of the tools using to download all this stuff. So I'm on Mac. Go ahead and copy this and run that on your terminal. So I would do something like this and open a terminal and paste it all in and then hit run. I already have that, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, so that is essentially what you need in order to get started. So make sure you have all these pieces installed and ready to go. So next time we see each other, we are going to get started with MCP server development. All right, so before we start building our own MCP servers, I'm going to show you this Model Context Protocol link under GitHub. So if you go to GitHub, Model Context Protocol, this is where the code for Model Context Protocol is maintained and all of that. So it's got a documentation, tells us what is the Model Context Protocol as an open protocol that enables seamless integration between LLM applications and external data resources or sources and tools. Let's go. So this is the place, right? So you can see there's a lot of contributors and all of that. So you can read about the documentation and all the great things. But what I want you to focus on is if you go under at the bottom here, go a little larger, servers. This is a list of maintained servers. I'm going to click here. So why am I showing you this? Well, I'm showing you this to let you know of the servers that other people have already created, right? We have servers created with different MCP SDKs. We have C#, Go, Java, and many, many others, okay? In this course, we're going to focus on Python MCP SDK. You can see that we have reference servers. Servers aim to demonstrate MCP features and the official SDKs. Okay, so if I keep going down, you could see that we're going to get to the point where we have MCP servers that we can actually use and test. Find, say, community. So we're going to get to community servers. So this is a growing set of community developed and maintained servers demonstrates various applications of MCP across different domains. And one thing to tell you that use at your own risk because these servers haven't been tested. Okay, so nonetheless, it's a really good way for us to start looking at what we are going to be building, but looking at something that is already built and see how we can leverage these MCP servers and test them out. Okay, so for instance, you can see this one panel MCP server implementation that provides one panel interaction. I'm just going to right click and open a new tab here so we can see what's going on. So of course, there is the actual code that you can run locally, which is not what we're interested in right now. But it gives us some information on how to download and how to do all these things. And usually at the bottom here, if you want to use this locally, what it would do is it would copy this configuration file here, or copy this JSON, which has a few things there, and paste in pieces that we need for this to work. Let's go ahead and find something that it's easier for us to look into. Let's look at this actor-critic thinking. Actor-critic thinking for performance evaluation. I'm going to right click and you can see that we have the actual code. It says here a dual perspective thinking analysis server based on Model Context Protocol, providing comprehensive performance evaluation through actor-critic methodology. Let's go ahead and look what they have. So there's a showcase here that says you can pass in a prompt and a description of whatever you need to use to apply this methodology of thinking. And you can see it gives us results. Okay, this is using ChatGPT. So what I want to do now is go all the way down here. It talks about dual perspective analysis and what happens in the backend. But use case, evaluate artistic performance, analyzing the gap between intention and execution, providing constructive feedback, and all of that. So we're going to use this. Now, how do we use this MCP server ourselves locally to test it out? So if I keep going down, you can see how to use. So you can see, again, the same thing we saw earlier. I showed you just a few moments ago. The same thing we see here. So this is the piece of code, right? This is what I copy this JSON here and add into the configuration file. So where do I put this? All right, so I have Claude Code open here. What do you want to do? You can't quite see. You want to go to Claude Desktop, go to settings. So you want to go all the way down where you say developer, and you want to go to edit configuration or edit config. If I click here, it's going to show you exactly where all of this is. So I want to take this Claude, as you can see here, desktop config JSON, and open that in my directory or in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to drag and drop, and this is what you will see. Okay, so this is where we're going to take this. So copy and go back to here, and I'm going to paste. So this is what we add inside of this Claude Desktop config.json. So it's just JSON that tells us that we have MCP servers. This meaning MCP servers that we add are going to be added under these MCP servers Okay, so you can see it says actor, critic, thinking, and we have a few things also that are attached here. So we have the command. So what's happening is that the command that we will use internally to run our MCP server is npx. This is node. Then the arguments that are going to be passed is -y, just to say yes to any question that comes when we run the code. Right? Just say yes to run everything. And then this is the actual MCP server that is going to be run. So let's go ahead and save this. I'm going to say overwrite. Looks like we have issues. So save this. And now let's go ahead and open Cloud Code. So whenever you do that, if your Cloud Code is open, you want to go ahead and quit and then reopen. This is what you always need to do. I'm going to reopen again, and we should have, hopefully everything is there. Now you may say, okay, I don't see anything. What's going on? Now, I'm going to show you. If you go to Claude and go to settings again, you'll notice if you go to developer, now you can see earlier was empty, but now you see actor, critic, thinking. And you can see that it is running the command that it ran to run this MCP server, and it's all good. And from here, you can also delete, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, so we know that this is indeed working here, and open a new tab here. A new chat, and I'm going to write something. Let's say I need you to use the actor, critic, thinking methodology, and then I'm going to put something that it's more of a gibberish just to see how this will do. So I'm going to say, for instance, description of what I need to use would say it's a beautiful day in my hometown. I can hear cars and birds chirping, and I just can't get enough of it. So let's go ahead and run this. Look what's going to happen. So I'm going to run, and you can see all of a sudden it's going to go through the process, and then voila, you can see actor, critic, thinking. So pulls in the MCP server to say, because this is what it's needed for it to actually do the work. So it picked up that it needs to get actor, critic. Right? Now, the thing here, in your case, you will see that it will always ask you, there's a pop-up that comes up to ask you whether or not you want to use this MCP server. Because earlier I ran and I said allow all. That's why you don't see it here. But in your case, it should pop up something to say, hey, are you sure you want to run this? And if I open closely, you can see that, look at that request. The content, it pulls the things that I added, and that's what's going to use to do what it needs to do. So thought number, it says 1, total thoughts 5, next rounded needed true. So it goes through this process. I don't know what this is. I don't understand everything. That's okay. I'm just going to look at what's happening. So then we have role, critic, the content. It is what is pulled in. This is textbook example, mindful awareness and present moment appreciation from psychological perspective. So it's doing all the things that the server is supposed to do, and calls it again, and you can see the role now is the actor. The critic raises valid points and does all the things. So there's this talking, this dialogue that is happening until we get the final result. So if I open here, this should be the actor. I appreciate the critics more than once. So 2 things are talking. So we have all of these agents essentially are talking to each other and passing information around. So at the end of the day, you can see that we have the final result, the analysis summary. Through this dual perspective examination of your beautiful day experience, several key insights emerge. From the actor's perspective, right? So it's going through the process of analyzing, giving the critic's perspective and the actor's perspective, and the synthesis finally. And it also gives us these actionable insights, all of that here. Now, again, I don't know a lot about what this methodology is all about, but all I know is that somebody created this MCP server somewhere, and I was able to download it and test it out using our Claude Desktop here. How cool is that? So we were able to use the MCP server somewhere, we don't know where, and the client, which is inside of our host. So our host is, of course, our Claude Desktop here, which contains the MCP client that is talking to our actor, critic, thinking MCP server. This is an example of the power of MCP servers. So we're using an MCP server. We don't know about much about all the intricacies that took to create it. We were just able to pull that and put in our config file here and test it out just like that. This is a very simplified example here, but you can see the power, if you're not convinced so far, of MCP servers, right? I could create or use a different, let's say IDE or a different application, a host that has MCP clients, and do the same thing, and I would be able to use that MCP server, this actor critic thinking MCP server, and do the same thing. So next, we are actually going to figure out how to build our own MCP server locally and test it out. All right, so I have my Visual Studio Code set up. You should have all that. And what I'm going to do now is let's create a very simple MCP server. Okay, so a few things will need to happen. First, we need to make sure that we have UV installed. So you should have that set up now, because that's what I'm going to be using. You could use pip, but I'm going to use UV. And let's get started. So first, I'm going to initialize a Python project. So I'm going to say UV. So UV init as such. So this should initialize, you can see, our Python project. It's very convenient. What I like to do actually is rename this to say hello MCP.py. Okay, very simply. Okay, so next let's create a virtual environment. So UV, you can say venv like that. And you can see that that is indeed generated, which is good. And let's go ahead and say source and say bin activate. So this is what you do on Mac. On Windows, it's a little bit different. I'm going to just say source venv, and you can see that should be active now. So if you're on Windows, you would run something like this, okay, backslashes like that. Okay, so the next thing is we need to install some dependencies. So first of all, we're going to install the MCP CLI dependency real quick here. So say UV, the MCP CLI is going to say UV add MCP CLI like this. So make sure UV add MCP and then double quote, CLI, of course, all of that inside of square brackets. All right, so now we have all the dependencies that we need for us to get started. Okay, let's go to the code. So I'm going to get rid of all of this. And at the top here, we need to import a few things. So the first thing we're going to do is, just get rid of that for now. We're going to make some imports. So I'm going to say from MCP, I'm going to go to server, and I'm going to go and get fast MCP. That's the wrapper that for building MCP. I'm going to import fast MCP as such. I'm going to just create a simple random generator, random number generator here for our simple MCP server. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to instantiate our MCP server. As you can see right away, I have that, and I can just say, for instance, this is random name. You can name whatever you want. So this is our handle. So now we can use this MCP as our handle, as our object that allows us to generate and create the actual MCP servers. So what do we want to do? Well, it's really simple because everything is through creating functions. So I'm going to define a function here. It's called get random name. And what I'm going to pass is going to be a name, which is going to be a list. And then I'm going to return a string. So what I want to happen here? Well, there's a lot of stuff. I'm just going to read off all of this. I'm going to just get the code and show you exactly how it all works. So one thing that is important to keep in mind, let's change this to names. Okay. Now, one thing you notice is that get random name, we pass in names as a list and returns a string. So you have this doc string. Doc strings is very important because this is actually what's used by the large language model to know exactly when to invoke this function, which is still a function, but it's going to become a tool soon. Okay. So being specific, you can say gets a random people's name, right? Like that. I'm going to probably space like this. The names. And then the names are stored in a local array. Very good. And the arguments, names is the argument. The user can pass a list of names to choose from, or it will default to a predefined list. And the predefined list is something like that. Okay. And then we call choice and pass that default names to generate a random name. Very simple. So of course, if name main here, this is where we call the MCP. So I'm going to say mcp.run. And for now, let's just leave it as that. Now, the question is, this is not quite going to work. The reason being is because this is just a function. We need to make this to be an actual tool because MCP servers need a way to call tools. So how do we make this a tool? Well, we can actually annotate or decorate this whole function to make it an actual tool which MCP server is going to be able to serve to any client. So it's pretty simple. We're going to say @MCP and then call tool like that. So what happens now is that this get random is not just a random function or a general function or method. This now is an MCP tool, which is exactly what is served to our client. Okay, so now we have a very simple MCP server, but it's not a server yet because we need to run it. So to run it, we're going to do the following. Okay, so I'm going to say MCP, I'm going to say dev, and then the name of this file, which is hello_mcppy. So look what's going to happen. I'm going to hit run. So this is going to start at the inspector. So this will start the MCP inspector, which is a tool that comes with MCP, fast MCP and all of that, so that we can actually start testing things out. Look what is going to happen. So now you can see for each inspector that is run, it comes in with this proxy server listening on, and this is the URL, this is the port. But attached to that is what we call session token. So that means now we can open this inspector with token pre-filled, because that's what you want. So I'm going to say command click, and that opens this. Look at that. So this is actually running locally and has the auth token attached and everything. So MCP inspector version that. So this is really good. Now you can say, why do I need this? Well, you need this because this is going to help you test things before run this MCP server through a client, an actual host such as Claude Desktop. So what we're going to do next, first, we can see transport type. Aha, so we don't want that. We want standard IO because we are doing everything locally so far. You know the differences between these three. Very cool. So standard IO, and the command when this needs to run is going to be UV, and then arguments are going to be run with MCP and like that. So it's going to go and run this command, which essentially is what we had before. We don't have environment variables, and let's go ahead and see if we can connect. Okay, so you can see now we're connected to our MCP server. Very cool. Now, there's a lot of stuff here, but one thing you can see history, you can see number one, we have the initialize. If you click, you remember the method initialize and response was this. Okay, a lot of gibberish here, server information, random name, version, and all of that. And you can see that this random name server info, it is indeed this name that we gave right here, fast MCP. Okay, very good. So now what I want to do is, you can see at the top here, we have resources, we have prompts, tools, sampling, and all of that. What we want is to go to tools. And then you can see we have list of tools. Click on that and voila, you can see get random name, and the information that we pass into that tool, that function that became a tool, is right here. Gets a random people's name. The names are stored in local array and all of that. So if I click, I can actually start testing this. So let's see, it's kind of small. I can say, for instance, actually, because the default is going to be something, right? We don't have to add anything. If shows, if we add nothing, it should just give us a random name. And I can do that. I'm going to just go ahead and say a run tool. Looks like we have an error. Let's just say, I'll put something here. James, Alice, Paulo. And let's see if this is going to work. I'm going to run. And look at that. The result is Alice, which is a random name. In fact, if I go back here and just remove all of this, perhaps I could get the default names and run. You can see it says Alice. And if I run again, it says James, because it's getting random names from where? Well, from the list that we added here. So I know I added Alice before, but you can see, there we go. So it's getting information from default names list and giving me all this stuff. Right, all the random names. And you can see that in our terminal here, you can say create server transport, receive post messages, and with session ID. So you can see that our server is actually running and we are connecting to it and testing it out just like that. And you can see also there's this output schema that is generated with type object, properties, and all of that. This is important. The reason being is because we were able to explicitly add this docstring in our function, which became tool, so that it knows exactly what to do. That's what's used underneath to know exactly how to get to run this get random name whenever it's prompt. You will see once we're actually running this using a host. This is really good. So I'm going to create a list here, maybe with different names. Let's just say bond, like that. And let's see, I'm going to come down, run. And I should get success, and this time it says result is bond. It's a random name, and click again, it's going to say Lee. So each time it's getting a random. Of course, it repeats. That's okay. And so forth. Very good. So a lot of things happening here. And of course, you should know here you can see the whole log history of what happens. Each time we run, you can see there's tool call. And this is what the request usually has packaged up to send to this, our server, right? To our MCP server. So every time we say call, it's going to go and create something like this, right? And passes in those names, right? Calls has the get random name parameter that's run here, and it knows the arguments are names and some metadata and so forth. So, and then response comes back as this text type is text, and the actual text is bond. And of course, we have structured content, result bond, and all of that. So each time, as you see, we see exactly what's going on. All right, so the first one is always the hardest in a way, but this is exactly what it entails for us to when we build our own MCP server and we test it locally using standard IO, as you can see, as transport type. Very cool. So here's what I want you to do. You have the code. You saw what I've done. I want you to go ahead and create I should say, you can go ahead and create yet another tool. It's just a function, and then decorate with MCP tool that does something else. Stop the server and run again and test to see. Right? If we connect, and you should see that when it comes to tools, you should be able to click list tools, and you will see another tool represented showing here, the tool that you added. Very exciting. Okay, we're making good progress. All right, so I hope you were able to create yet another tool here. So I came out with this get random nickname. Not very inventive, but it's okay. So make sure, again, the doc string is very descriptive because that is what's used to actually ensure that this get random name is called. Especially we'll see this when we run this using a host. Okay, so there we go. So it generates a fun random nickname by combining a random adjective and a random name. So in this case, he names, it's going to be a list of names. The user can pass a list of names to choose from, or it will default to predefined list. So we have these predefined lists here. Okay, and then it returns that concatenated choice adjectives and attached to the name list. Now you will see that once you do that, you don't have to run anything. You can just refresh and click restart and go to tools. I'm going to clear and say list tools. You'll see that now we have not only the get number or get random name, we also get random nickname. So I'm going to click on that and the same things will happen. Let me make this smaller. And in this case, I'm just going to remove everything there to just use the default names and run. Okay, so input should be a valid list. Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to say hello Jordan like this. Let's see if this is going to give us something. Okay, so now you can see mighty hello. And if I run again, it should give me witty hello. Keep running. Clever Jordan, and each time is going through the process of generating a random adjective and attach a random name. Okay, let's go back again. Make sure you're clicking at the right one. So get random nickname. I just put nothing there. I'm going to run. So empty. You can see it says success, results, brave Alice. Run again. Witty Charlie, witty Bob, and going through all of the adjectives and random names. Okay, do you have it? So we know that our very first server, MCP server, is running and we're able to test it. Both tools are being called and returning a result. So next we're going to take this server and see if we can run this using a different host, in this case Claude Desktop, and see if it works. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we know that our MCP server is actually running locally because we looked at our inspector and everything is good. So how do we take this and run this MCP server on Claude Desktop? Okay, I'm going to show you real quick here. So first, I'm going to go ahead and open our terminal here. And because this is still running, I could delete it. I could stop it, but I'm going to leave it running. Our inspector here, I'm going to just create a new instance of our terminal here. So here, I'm going to do something different. In order for us to install this to Claude Desktop, all we do is we say MCP, say install, and the name of our file, which is hello MCP. So hello, and don't forget the py. Hit enter, and you can see it says added server random name to Claude config. So now if I open Claude config, we should be able to see that that was indeed added. And you can see that it says here random name. If you go to Claude Desktop config, it says random name. Command is pointing to where I have the UV, right, installed locally. And for you, it's going to be different. And of course, the args here says run and is including with MCP CLI and then MCP run. Okay. And of course, for you, this will tell you exactly, or will have the path to where the hello MCP.py file is. So to correct the entire path, as you see. For Windows, of course, we'll have backslashes, not forward slashes like this. But you can see, there it is. That was added just using that one command. So now, if we open Claude Desktop, all is good. But if I go to settings, just to show you, just to confirm that this is actually working, and go to developer, you can see that we have the actor critical thinking, and then now we have this random name, which of course shows us the arguments that we pass to run this and the command that run, and it's running. That means if we come back here, I can go ahead and say something like, given these names, I'm going to find a few names, let's say Jaco, Elliot, Sarah, Chinoka, Jocondo, okay, generate a random name and show it to me. Let's see. So hit enter. If all goes well, it's going to invoke, and voila, you can see get random name. Now, the reason why, again, you're not seeing anything that tells us whether we allow this or not is because I have set things to where it just allows all once. So which means you don't have to click allow. In your case, first time, what will happen is that it's going to pop up a window that says you want to allow this to happen or not. You want to allow to run this or not. So this is a security measure. So you can see it says random name is Sarah. I can say from the same list, can you attach a random witty adjective, right? So this will invoke, hopefully, the other tool. Let's see. Aha, get random nickname. Okay, look at that. It called get random nickname. And now it says sneaky Chinoka. And if I open here, you can see uses the same list of names. Chinoka is one of them. And it got the random nickname, which attached indeed the adjective to the name, which now you see we have sneaky Chinoka. One thing to keep in mind, as I said earlier, it's very important that you give really good doc strings to your functions or your tools, okay, to make sure that it's easier for our host and the MCP client to be able to decipher, okay, I need to call that tool. Because if you don't add really good doc strings here, which this is used internally again to allow the LLM in this case to trigger this tool instead of figuring out itself and start doing it on its own. All right, now let's go ahead and build yet another MCP server. This is going to be fun because we're going to be able to create an MCP server locally that's going to be able to read a SQL-like database. So we'll have access to these databases. These are SQL-like databases, so very light. Okay, so let me go ahead and create a new file here. Let's call this SQLite server.py. And usually you probably would want to create all of these different servers, MCP servers, a different project, but I'm going to put all together in one big project or folder or directory here to simplify things. Okay, so you can see we still have a hello mcp.py, and now we're going to create the SQLite server.py. Now, one of the things you can do once you have your DB folder, I created this DB folder and added these two databases. If you wanted to peruse around and see what's in them, to go through them, right, to search through these databases, then what you want to do is to go to extensions here, click and look for SQLite. So just say SQL, I should say, hit enter, and you'll find this extension here. There are many of them, but I like this one. So if you click, you can see that I have already installed. So in your case, go ahead and install it. And there's a little video here. It's quite small, you can't quite see, but this video just tells us exactly how to use that. Okay, so make sure you install that if you want to do what I'm gonna show you in a second. So what I'm going to show you in a second is you can say Command Shift P, and this will open this, as you see here, this palette. So what you want to do is look for SQLite or just type open database and you click. It's going to give you the option right away to pick which database you want to open. Let's start with the world one. So click, and at the bottom you can see that we have now access to this SQLite Explorer. So if you click, you can see all the tables that are part of the SQLite Explorer or this database. And then I can probe in and see all the fields and all of that. Very handy. And so I'm going to click this button here, and this should open on the right hand side here, the actual database, the tables. Okay, so that table, which is the cities table, it has ID. If we go back here, you can say ID, name, state ID, and all of that, and all the values. So we can see we have Andorra, and it's a large table, has many rows, over 3,000. So now we can go over and you can see all of these cities in the whole wide world. Okay, and then you can go to the next one and see all the cities, and also you can see each city has a state ID, state code, the country code, latitude and longitude, and all of that. Okay, very good. So if I want to do the same, I can just go back here. If let's say I want to look at the countries, click, it's going to run that table, and we can see all the countries and everything. Okay, so we're going to use this and the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and actually get out of this one here because I want to run the other one. I can leave this running, but I'm going to just right click and close DB. And so now I'm going to do the same thing, Command Shift P for this palette to open, click open, and then I'm going to go to community. The community is a little bit less involved. It has this database with a list of people who have been chatting in a chat box or in a chat community of some sort. So we've got some names, messages, and less updated or less message at, and very simple, the simplest one. So it's easy to look at and play with it. Okay, so we can go, I think that's about it. So about 50. Okay, very good. So we're going to use both of them. We're going to start with this community chatters table here, and you can see how that works. And you can apply the same concepts with any type of data, essentially. All right, so let's go ahead and close that. In fact, if I want, I can just go ahead and close this as well, this DB. Let's do some quick imports here. So I'm going to say from MCP, and then I'm going to get the server, and then get fast MCP. So exactly the same thing we've done before. From there, I'm going to import the fast MCP, just like that. And because we're going to be dealing with SQLite, I'm going to also go ahead and import SQLite 3. All right. That always comes pre-built already with your basic Python project. Again, we've initialized our fast MCP, the actual server, and we gave it SQL Server as the name. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and define the actual tools to fetch the top chatters from the database. So we're going to start with this DB, the first one here, which is community, which I showed you. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and define, let's call this get chatters. And you remember we need to pass in the actual doc string to make sure that the large language model is able to retrieve or be triggered whenever we start typing in our MCP client, and then it will know to call this. So retrieve the top chatters sorted by number of messages. Okay, now I have the actual code. So first we're going to go ahead and connect to DB, and to connect to DB, I'm going to say just call connection here, and let's say SQLite 3 and connect to chat DB. Now we don't have chat DB, of course. This has to be this DB here. Okay, so we're gonna go all over the place and get to the community. I'm gonna right click. I'm gonna go ahead and copy the whole path like this, and I'm gonna put there. Okay, so goes to users, all of this, and go to the community DB. You want to do this to be safe because you want to make sure later this is going to be translated into the JSON config file, which will be attached to Claude Desktop. Okay, once we have that, then we're going to just create a cursor and we're going to call the connect cursor like that. Okay, so and next we are going to query to fetch the chatters. So I'm going to select name, messages from chatters, ordered by messages in descending order. And of course, put that into results, and we call the fetch all. And of course, we close the connection. We take results and loop through, and then create a list of dictionary. This is just good for displaying purposes. And then we'll return those chatters, right? Okay, that's about it for our first tool. And so now I'm going to put the if name, something like that, and then I'm going to just remove all of that. So what we do now, MCP that run. Now, remember, for this to actually become a tool, we have to annotate or decorate this by saying at or at then tool, or let's say MCP tool like that. Okay, and so now this will recognize as an actual MCP server tool to be called. All right, so let's go ahead and save this, and let's go and do what we do. Now we're going to test things out. So I'm going to say MCP dev, and I'm going to pass the name SQLite server and run this. Hopefully, if all goes well, we're going to be able to have the inspector with the token here. I want this one. Command click. So we have here, now it's going to be standard IO. Make sure that if it's under any other transport type, we want to do standard IO. And then all is good. Let me go and just connect. And just like that, you can see we're connected now. And let's go to tools, list tools. You'll see that we have get top chatters. So now I can run this tool. Look at this. I don't have to pass anything. I can just go run, and gives me the top chatter is Zephyr and has 499 messages sent, and Harper, there's a number of messages, Tatum, and all of that. Very good. All right, it works. So you can see with this, you can add many other tools, right? Because this one just gets the top chatters, and you can create another tool that perhaps could get you the top 3 chatters, right? Or top 2 and all of that. But this is a good starting point. So we have one tool that is running on our MCP server. So what I wanted you to do is to perhaps add another tool. The mechanics are always the same. That's the beauty here. Don't forget to add mcp.tool to annotate that this is indeed a tool for our server, and then write the code. Okay, and don't forget, of course, the mcp.run always has to run at the bottom here. So we know that this is working. So next, what we want to do is maybe install this to Claude Desktop. So I'm going to say mcp install SQLite server.py. Oh, I made a mistake there. Let's go back. SQLite server and run. Okay, now it's installed. It says added server SQLite server to Claude. It's very nice. Let's go ahead and open that and see. Okay, so I have Claude code open. And of course, if I want, I can go to settings just to make sure that this is actually added. In fact, before I even do that, go all the way to developers, and you can see we have SQLite server. There we go. This is what was added as arguments into the JSON configuration file. And you can click here if you want to edit. I'm going to click that and then pull that in. This is the file. I'm just going to drag and drop. And you can see that we have the old one, right? This is the actor critic thinking, I should say. We have the random name. And now we have the SQL server, which runs like this, which then you can see that it goes and finds the SQL server.py. All right, so this is good. Let's open new chat and let's see, show the top community chatters and their names. Hit enter, and if all goes well, you will see that in my case, it's going to go and pull in the get top chatters because it knows where to get that tool. And you can see here it is. Again, remember that in your case, it should show a pop-up window for you to allow to run this or not. It's a security measure. But in my case, I just said allow once in one time and then doesn't ask me anymore. Okay, right, there we go. So you can see passing the request, and the request response, there we go. You can see the request is empty because we didn't need to pass any arguments or anything, but it was passed nonetheless, and ran and found Zephyr and 499. So essentially the same thing that we saw before and all of that. And then put all that together. Right, I'm going to close this down, and then top 10 most active and showed them all here. And also because it's on top of a large language model, in this case Claude Sonnet, it also went ahead and say your community has 50 active chatters total, with Zephyr leading the pack at 499. Okay, I can keep asking, say just give me the top 3 chatters. Let's see. Okay, so you notice that because it didn't need to go and fetch the tool anymore, because that has happened already, it just inferred from the information that we received, right, all this information, and then it just went ahead and answered it. Because the large language model is smart enough because it has the context. This is the fun of having an MCP server. We adding context to our large language model, and it knew right away that, okay, I have the list, because I got this list from calling the tool. But now when they ask this, I can just go infer from what I already know and just pull in the top 3. All right, there you have it. Okay, so now we're going to go and get to the world.db. So there's a lot there, but the process is still the same. I've added this db path here, so because we're going to be using that everywhere. So I thought I would extract this out and put in a variable outside there, static variable. Okay, so now we know that we have this get top charters, or chatters, I should say, and it works. And you can see the connection now is a little bit different. I just added the db path and appended the community.db. That's just simpler because we don't want to keep repeating the db path. So next what we'll do is we're going to add this world.db, right? Create functions, or in this case tools, to query the world.db. The process is still the same. You notice that I extracted out the db path to put all of this, and I did not add the actual name of the database so that we can do that inside like this. So SQLite 3 connect, we pass the path variable, and then we append community DB. Okay, for this case. So for the other case, of course, we're going to do the same thing, but let's make this a little bit better actually, because the connection to the database, it's always going to be essentially the same. So let's abstract that out and put it somewhere. So I'm going to create a function, a simple function here called getDBConnection. I'm going to pass DB name as a string. So now anytime we call getDBConnection, we pass the name of the database, and then we are going to go ahead and connect as such, and accessing all of the columns by name as you see here. So that means right here, instead of having that, I can comment this out and then use something different. So you can see get DB, pass DB name, in this case community.db. So let's make sure everything works. It should work. I'm going to save all of that. And if I come back here, I'm going to restart and clear everything just to make sure. And list, we should be able to still see the get top chatters and run the tool, and we should be able to see the results. So it's actually the same thing. I just want to make sure everything still works. Okay, so we are going to close this down, that tool, and let's create another tool here at the top. So before we do that, let me add a few helper functions which we're going to be using. So I'm going to put at the top here. So these functions here, dictionary from row. So it's going to convert, as you see, SQLite 3 row into a dictionary. That's all we're doing here. And then dictionaries from rows. What it will do is convert list of SQLite row to list of dictionaries. So these are just helper functions which are going to be using next. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add the other tool, which is going to be get countries. Because if you go back here and I go to SQLite Explorer, this is still running. You can see this world DB has cities, countries, regions, states, and all of that. Okay, so we're going to create functions which are going to be transformed into a tool to query most of these tables. So let's start with get countries. Okay, so we have get countries here, and let me say at MCP tool like that, and we have a few things that we need to fix. Actually, just very easy. We can just import. So I'm going to say command period, and I'm going to import optional as such. And let's see what else is happening here. And we also need to import, so command period. Okay, just right click and get import from list like that. And I'm going to import from dictionary. And then of course, any do the same. So we're making all those imports as you see from typing. Okay, so what happens now here, we have all of these parameters or arguments when we pass in, and all of them are optional. And of course, we have the doc string, get countries with optional filtering. We can make this even better, but this should work. And then we have some arguments here. Name, country name is going to be partial match once we start doing the querying. We have ISO, so each country has ISO 2 code. That should be the exact match, and go from there. We have capital, currency, and all of that. And of course, we can limit maximum number of results. Default is 100. So these are the things, arguments we can actually pass through our tool. And the return is going to be list of country dictionaries. Okay, so we can see that we have creating a connection here by calling the get connection and passing the DB name, which is world, has to be exactly this DB that we have inside here, world. All right, so we have get countries. So you can see that we pass in a string, a name, and we expect to return a list of dictionaries which will have string and any. So essentially a list of dictionary that would have the name of the country and all of other pieces. Okay, so then we have here the doc string that says simple country search by name, and I could make this better, simple country search by name, and we can add more information, but this should work. And then we have args, it's going to be name, country name to search for, and I can say this is optional, default, return all countries from the database. Okay, just to be more descriptive, and returns list of matching countries. Very good. So we know that connection here, we're passing to DB, it's world.db. And of course we have, if name, then we're going to just print out something that says, okay, searching for country's name with that name. Else we're just going to say no name provided. I'm going to go ahead and just get all the countries in. In this case, we're just going to return the first 10 countries. Of course, we pass the query and parameters, and we get the result from dictionary from rows, and then pass in the cursor, which calls fetch all. All right, so we just have some prints here to see what is coming out. All right, so I'm going to save this. And if we go back to our MCP inspector, what I like to do is always refresh and connect once again. It should be working. And if not, you can always go back to make sure, of course, that your server is actually running here. So I'm just keeping it running to facilitate our development here. Okay, I'm going to list everything, list all the tools under tools. And if I go here, we can get countries and get chatter. So let's go get countries. I'm not going to add anything right now, just to see how this will behave. I'm going to click, and you can see we get a lot of countries. Okay, at least 10 of them. Let's see, how many do we say? We have 0, and we got a few coming in. So we've got a few countries that are added here. Let's see, what's the last one? Yeah, so we got about 10 countries that are showing. If we want, of course, we can change this part to say 100 or 200, whatever number we want. So let's just say 197, and I'm going to restart, go back here, countries, I put nothing, I should get more. So it took a little while, and you can see that we have a lot more countries than that. Okay, so all the way down, you can see that we have 168, 170, and all the way down to 198. All right, so that's good. So this is actually working. All of that from this one tool that we added here. So now to show you, I'm going to save this, and let's see if we open up Claude, what do you want to do every time? I'm going to quit and go ahead and open that again. Every time you should quit and reopen just to make sure that the changes were added. And I'm going to just go ahead and go ahead and ask, say, give me the list of all countries from the world database. Let's see if this is going to pick up. Okay, there we go. It picked it up. Okay, so get countries, and it's going to go and, of course, call. You can see response. This is the response that we received, and it's going to pull all these pieces and at the end give us the actual result. And you can see here's the complete list of all countries from the world database. The results show 250 countries. Very good. And ID identifier, and gives us all the fields, which is exactly what we have. This is very cool. We even have the emoji field as well. All the names for all the countries, but it didn't actually come up in right here. That's okay. So maybe we could prompt it better to say write because it's probably too much, and maybe Claude Desktop is complaining a little bit, but we know that it actually called the tool and gave us all the information. Okay, let's go ahead and test it out. So I can say list the top 20 countries from the database along with their ISO 3, something like this. Let's see. It should be able to invoke our function. There we go, get countries, or tool I should call. Very good. This looks wonderful. So we got the 20, and I can go ahead and open this. Okay, so name, we passed the request. There's nothing really. So we went ahead and just got all the countries information. So we can say ID 1, Afghanistan, ISO 3, all of that. Very good. So this is indeed working. And you can see here at the top and created this very nice table for us. Okay. Tell me more about the country from the database. Okay, let's see what's gonna do. So now it should pull Armenia. It gives that information, geographic details, time zone, and even the emoji. And all these pieces actually are coming from the database, right? This is really good, really good. So it's actually working. Now you may say, well, it did not run our tool. Well, it's implied because the tool ran before. So it has the information about Armenia, but this is actually one of the countries that we pulled from here, right? And I can do the same thing just to show you that this works. I can say the same thing, the same query. Let me go back all the way and copy this and paste in, but instead of Armenia, let's just say Tanzania, because that's the country that is not here, that we pulled in here. So you can see that what will happen. So at this point here, let's see, let's run. It should pull the tool. Okay, there we go, get country. So now you will notice the response will get name Tanzania, which means that is the parameter is going to go and fetch all the information about that country. Look at that. Basic information, Tanzania, native name is Tanzania, capital, and ISO codes, phones, geographic details, and coordinates, of course, and all of these pieces. All right, very good. So there we go. You have at least one other tool that we added into our SQL MCP server, and in the next video I'm going to keep adding a few more so you can see the whole picture. And the beauty here is that you can go crazy with what we have here. Maybe make this doc string a little bit better. And remember, the doc string is very important because this is what's used internally by the large language model to be able to go and pick up that tool to be used instead of using what this large language model in this case knows. Okay, so that's very good. So you can keep asking questions and say, tell me about the United States from the database. Something like this. I could have rephrased it better, but just to make sure that he knows to go get the tool. So it should go ahead and pick up the tool and pass, of course, United States, there we go, and pulled all the pieces that it needs. You can see it got text, NID, United States, currency, and all of that. And you can see pulled the name, font code, currency, time zones, the emoji, and all of that. Okay, go ahead and keep testing and we'll continue in the next video. All right, let's continue here. So let's get another tool that simplifies everything called search countries. So I already have the code and I'm just going to show you real quick here. Search countries tool. So this requires us to enter a string name and it returns a list of dictionaries which will contain string as the key and any as the actually key value. So key is going to be string and value is going to be any, it could be anything. So it says here, search for countries by name. The args here is just one, the name, country name to search for. This is going to be partial matches allowed. Okay, and of course we return a list of countries matching that search. Okay, so in this case here, let's remember to pass a DB name, which is going to be world.db. Okay, let's save. Of course, we go through the process. If there's a name attached, we're going to say select all from countries. World name is like whatever we're passing along, which in this case is the name, right? And we're going to order by name and limit to 20. Else, we're just going to go ahead and create a query where we'll select everything from countries and order by name and limit to 20. All right. And of course, we'll return the results. Okay. I'm going to save that and go ahead and test it out again, just to make sure. Let's refresh and reconnect. Let's go list, get countries, search countries. Very good. We still have all of the other ones we've added. Let's go ahead and look at the search countries. So search countries, I'm going to start with passing nothing for name. Should get at least 20 of them. So there we go. Gets Afghanistan and all the pieces. We have islands, and we have number 3, Albania, and so forth. So it's getting all of the names alphabetically. Okay, so this is good. So let me go ahead and search by name. Let's say Zimbabwe and see what will happen. Run. Okay, so this should just give me one, obviously, which is going to be the Zimbabwe country. ISO, numeric code, again, capital, and all the pieces. Very good. So it works. And of course, latitude and longitude, emoji, and when it was created, and all of that. Okay, so that one works. Let's continue here real quick so we can add as many as we want. And as we go, I'm going to go ahead and fold this so we can have more space. So to get just one specific country, so the same thing, really nothing new. We're going to pass the country code, okay, get detailed information about a specific country, and we pass the country code, which is usually ISO. So example, US GB France, GB for Great Britain, and FR for France. And this is what we return. Make sure that we pass DB name world.db. And the same thing we're going to execute by selecting countries where ISO is the country code that we're passing along. In this case, we're just fetching one and returning the results. Let's go test it out. Okay, get countries. I want get country just one. And I'm going to pass JP. I believe that's Japan. Run. And you can see, indeed, we have Japan, ISO, and ISO 2, Tokyo as the capital, and all that information. Okay, we're going to continue. I'm going to go ahead and get countries by region. By the way, you're going to have access to all this code, so you don't have to worry about that. So we have country by region. We pass a string, of course, for that region, get all countries in a specific region. So we can pass in Europe, Asia, or Africa. Okay, and let's go ahead and add that. Make sure that get DB, we pass the world.db. And of course, we execute our connection here from countries, select all from countries where region is like whatever we pass in this region, and we order by the name of that region. Let's go ahead and test it out. Okay, get country by region. I'm going to say Africa. Let's run. And there you have all these different countries and latitude and all of that information. All right, very good. So this actually works. Let's go continue. We're going to go ahead and now get countries by currency. So this will, of course, return a list of countries by that specific currency. And we have the doc string, find all countries that use specific currency, USD, Euro, or GP, pound. And that's what it returns. And of course, let's go ahead and pass DB name there to instantiate the connection. And we'll do the same thing. Again, all of this is essentially the same thing we've been doing. It's just that we have different tools name as we instantiate or create them along with the doc string. Okay, you can always improve the doc string, but this should work. Okay, let's save this and continue testing. I know there's a lot of repetition here, but I'm going to do it in a way so you can see exactly how all of this is done. So again, I'm going to clear and run again. We said get countries by region, I believe. No, this is get countries by currency. We should have here. And let me see if I say empty, run. There's no results. Okay, let's find USD. Okay, we found a few here because America, Samoa, and gives information about that country, which is nice. Bonaire, British Indian Ocean, and all of these different ones. All right, so very good. Okay, so next we are going to add city tools. We're trying to paint the entire picture here. So let's get this other tool here. Got the code, everything is ready. And so search cities. So we pass name as a string and of course country code. So search for cities by name and optionally filter by country. All right, so name, that's the arg, and country code, this is optional. Okay, this is partial matches allowed for city name to search for. So we're limiting it to at least 30. Save. Let's go back here and we go to search cities. So Tokyo, and country code is GP. And there you go. Get all the cities in around Tokyo. Okay, very good. And let's try London, GB, City of London, Greater London, London itself, Londonderry County Borough, West End of London. Very good. So it works. Okay, maybe one more just to say Rio de Janeiro, BR, Brazil. Let's see if this is going to work. And most likely it does work. So Rio de Janeiro, and that's the only one that shows. Okay, very good. Right, next is get cities in country. We pass country code as a string and limit of about 50. So we get cities in a specific country. Country code, as we know, two-letter country, US, GB, or France. And of course, we have the limit, which defaults to 50. Okay, so let's go do the same thing. All right, add the world. And then here we're getting all of the cities where country is equal to whatever we're passing as the country code. Okay, get cities in country. Let's say US. Okay, and gets us a bunch of at least 50 of them. All the way down, should get 49. Makes sense. All right, now we can go to state or province tools. So search state, and we can pass name and country string and search for state, province by name, and optionally filter by country. And of course, the argument is going to be name, state, province, right? This is partial search, which is allowed, and country code. All right, So the same thing, passing the DB there. And the same thing we've done before. So we're creating this query, select all from states where 1 is equal 1, which means it's going to always be true. But then depending on what we're passing in, we're appending all those parameters so that later we can actually have the query and params and add them through the connection and execute and getting the results. So we've added the search states. Go save. There it is. Say Washington, US. Okay. So it gives it the Washington name of the state. That's the only one. Of course, makes sense and gives us some information about it. And very good. So it works. So I added a few more tools here just to save ourselves time. So I have get states in country, which of course get all states, provinces in a specific country, right? We can pass the country code as an argument. Do the same thing. And then we have the region tools. So we can get all regions. So this just returns all world regions as a list. And we have the get subregion in region. We pass in the region ID and that happens. And then we have the statistics and summary tools. So instead we can trigger this get database stats, counts of countries, cities, states, region, and subregions. So essentially the stats of all of these countries, cities, stats, and regions in the world. And then I have this get country summary. So essentially when this is called, it's going to get a summary of all countries with just very basic information. And the beauty here, you can see that when I execute, we're selecting the fields or the columns name, ISO 2, capital, and region. We could add other columns if we want to, but these are specific or enough and detailed enough to get the country summary. Okay, so we can actually also call the get popular currencies, which gets the most commonly used currencies and how many countries use them. And that's about it. So I've added all of these, and what I can do now, if you go back to our testing here, I'm going to restart a couple of times. So now I'm going to clear, and you can see that we have all of them set up. So we have all these tools that we can use. For instance, get database stats. I'm going to click on that. Doesn't require anything. I can run real quick and it should give me the stats for our database. So total countries 250, total cities 151,233, total states 5,128, total subregions 22. Very cool. Get popular currencies, for instance, doesn't require anything. We'll just run this and you can see euro. We have USD, the Australian dollar, the Caribbean dollar, I believe, and all of that. Right? West African franc and GBP. So now we can actually take this and install in Claude Desktop. And that's what we're going to be doing in the next video. So once we've tested our MCP server and we know that it works by going through the MCP inspector, we can now install it in Claude Desktop. So I'm going to say MCP install SQLite server, hit enter. So let's go ahead and open Claude. Remember, every time you have to reopen, every time you install something, or make sure to stop it and then restart it. Okay, so again, as always, I like to look at what's really going on. If I go to settings, go all the way to developers, you can see that we have indeed the SQL server. If you click, you can see that it is indeed installed. Let's go to new chat. And here I'm going to ask a few questions. I can start with what countries use the euro. Okay, let's see if this has enough trigger words that will trigger our MCP server. Okay, let's run. Okay, it does. Look at that. It goes and get countries by currency. Passes in currency is EUR. Infer that from the MCP server. And the response that it gets is this. And of course, it's going to give us the whole picture. And the response result is this. Austria. Look at that. All of that. Very, very nice. So at the end, then the large language model, Claude Sonnet 4, is able to get that information and say, based on the database search, this is wonderful. That means it's actually doing the database search. Here are the countries and territories that use the euro, EUR, as their currency. Look at that. And passes in even also the emojis for the country's flag. Very nice. And talks about the non-euro countries using the euro, Andorra, Kosovo, Monaco, and all of those. French overseas territories. Perhaps what cities are near London, just to test things out. Let's see. Okay, get cities and country. This is excellent. So our docstring is actually working. And go ahead and search cities. Okay, cities in the country. So it's picking up all of the tools that it needs to actually be able to get all the information it needs from our database and then create a nice response. So let's study this a little bit. So get cities in country. It knows to pass country code GB, limit is 50, and the response is this. So it gives all of these cities in a response like that, okay, all of these different cities, and then search cities. It passes it London, for instance, and response city of London and all the pieces of information, and then Greater London. So it gives all the other cities in London around that area. And then, of course, it gives us get cities in country, gives all that information again, and then gets everything. Based on database search result, I can identify several cities that are near London. London is located, blah, blah, blah. Cities near London, very close within Greater London area, Abbey Wood, and even gives us the coordinates location for these cities. Very, very nice. Okay, let's continue. This is kind of fun. I'm going to continue. I'm going to say, for instance, maybe go to somewhere else. What states are in Canada? Let's run. Okay, get states in country. That's exactly the tool that we need. Okay, very nice. It knows that, okay, Canada doesn't have states. It has provinces and territories and does what it needs to do. So if you go back here, you can see country CA for Canada and gives us all of the territories and provinces. And of course, pulls all that information and gives us nicely here. Okay, and then I can continue here. This is pretty fun. I can say, for instance, how many countries are in a region? Just very generic. Let's see. Okay, get all regions. Very good. That's the first thing it does. And then get countries by region, because it understands first I need to get all the regions to get all the IDs, whatever needs to be done. And then get countries by each region. If I go back here, you can see, looks like it didn't have to pass anything, but then it knew that what we needed to get all of the regions with IDs and everything. And then get countries by region. For each region, for instance, we pass the region Africa, and then it goes and gets the country. And then Americas gets all of that information. And then later it does some work on its own. Okay, it looks like I got the maximum what I could do today, but that's okay. I can always create a new conversation as they want me to do. So let's go back and copy that and create a new conversation. Okay, and do the same. Just run this. Okay, so that's the same thing, which is good. Okay, so we have all of that. Picks each region again, get all regions first, get countries by region, and then starts getting each country by region and another one. So for each region, it gets all the countries, so it's passing along, and then get countries by region, even polar as well. So it gets all of them and shows it here 59 countries in total in Africa, 57 countries in Americas. We have 50 countries in Asia, 53 in Europe, 27 in Oceania, and 1 country in Antarctica. Gives us the breakdown and everything. Right, so there are many questions that we can actually ask. Let's go for a very simple one about regions. For instance, I can say, what are all the world's regions? Click, should go and get the tool and gives us all the pieces. Okay, and even their corresponding translations as well for different languages. I can ask, for instance, what subregions exist. Should go ahead and get the correct tool, get subregions in regions, and for each region gets the ID, and let's wait. Okay, so it looks like Claude hit the maximum length for this conversation. Please start a new conversation. So this is something that happens with Claude. That's fine. I can always go and open a new one and do the same thing. Okay, just few things, few limitations, but it's nothing to do with the actual MCP server. Everything is working. Okay, there we go. We have all of this. I can also do some similarity analysis, such as, for instance, I can say, find countries similar to the United States. So let's go ahead and see what will happen. Okay, so get country is going to get a country and search similar countries. So go look at this, get countries by region. So it's getting all these pieces using the MCP servers and all these different tools to get all the information that it needs. Look at that, getting the country, getting the countries by currency and all the things. And look at this, most similar overall, Canada, the closest match to the United States. Some sub-region, Northern America, they have same phone code, similar government, federal democratic system, geographic, large land mass, English language, Australia, and all of this, Brazil, Mexico, of course, and all that. Very, very nice. I can even say what countries are like Japan, for instance. Okay, it's going to do the same thing. Okay, there we go. Most similar overall, South Korea, right? Taiwan, Singapore, United Kingdom, okay? This is just an example, but the beauty here of things that you can do, you can actually ask some sort of a more complex multi-step queries. For instance, if you're planning a trip, you could say something like this. I'm planning a trip to Europe. What countries, cities, and currencies should I know about? Okay, let's see what's going to happen. So we're going to have, hopefully, the large language model. Client's going to be able to pick up all these different tools that it needs in order to get the information it needs to then formulate a better answer for the user. And now it's going to give me the whole thing that I need to know to get prepared, so I know exactly the countries, the cities, and currencies that I should have or know about. Okay, so it's giving me a very full overview of what's going on. Okay, so very nice. It gives me even things that I didn't ask for, like pro tips, book accommodations, try local specialties, use public transportation, validate tickets, and all of that, right? If I go all the way up, lots of information. Okay, so European travel guide, countries, cities, and currencies, Euro most widespread used, 19 Eurozone countries, Germany, and all these countries, major currencies, okay, must visit cities by region, money and payments, and all these things. Very, very cool. All right, so that's it, really. And you see the whole process here that we go through. First, we create these tools. We create the actual MCP server, and we create the tools by annotating mcp.tool, and then we write the actual code. So this is what is transformed into the actual tool, which, as you saw, we can test using the inspector, MCP inspector here. So once we know that this is working, then we can push that onto Claude Desktop, I should say, because it's just the easiest one. But next, I'm going to show you how to use a different host, right? In this case, I'm going to show you how to use this IDE here to actually run your MCP servers, right? And be able to call, in this case, all the tools just like we were doing with Claude Desktop. All right, I'll see you next. All right, so we've been using, as the host, we've been using Claude Desktop. So it doesn't matter what you use for a host, as long as it has the MCP client attached to it and it's able to run MCP servers. Up till now, we've been using Claude Desktop to run our MCP servers. But the good news is that it can actually run internally in Visual Studio Code. One thing you need to know is that you should have the Copilot installed. It's very simple to install. Just go VS Code and look for installing Copilot, because at some point you will have to run it, and I'll show you in a second where you have to run in agentic mode. Okay. All things considered, what you want to do is Command-Shift-P. This will invoke this palette here where you can go and look for MCP. Okay. But if you just say MCP, you will see that we have a few things here. We can browse servers, we can browse resources, we can research cached tools, all these different things, right? List servers. Let's go ahead and say list servers. So I have a few servers that are stopped already, and some of them are global, some of them are, you can see that running on Claude Desktop. Very good. So I want to add a new server. So I'm going to just get out of here and do it all over again so that I don't confuse you. So let's go ahead and say add MCP. So let's click here. And then what we want is not HTTP or server sent events, which you know what that is by now. We don't want npm package, so we can install from an npm package name or pip package as well as Docker, and also browse MCP servers. So what we want is this command standard IO to run a local command that implements the MCP protocol. So I'm going to run like that, and I'm going to pass the command to run this. We know it's UV, hit enter, and let's give a name for our server. So MCP server, that is. So I'm going to call this, let's just say world MCP. And now I can say I want this to run globally, right? Locally, but globally in workplace, available in this workplace only. So this will also run locally, but I just want to say global right now. Okay, the moment you do that, you can see that now we have this MCP JSON, just similar to what we had before for Claude Desktop JSON, right? And very similar. So now you can see that we have this one, which is one we're going to be using later. So just ignore this. But now we have this world MCP type standard IO, and command is UV. You can see that the command UV needs to run world CP was not found, and we have some issues here. So I'm going to come right here and I'm going to copy this whole thing. So this is from the Claude Desktop config, and I'm going to add right here like that. And then for the arguments, I'm going to come back here and just get all of this and paste it all in. All right, so as you can see here, the trick with this is that you need to pass for the command. You actually have to change and point that to where your, in this case, Python 3 is. And the easiest way to do that is you can run a few commands to figure out where things are. So I've tried a few, but Python 3 is the simplest one to do. So you can just say which Python 3, and then it should give you the full path where your Python 3 is. And then you copy that path. That is what you actually add in this command to say, this is what we're going to run for this entire MCP, right? So we're going to run this command Python 3. And then for the arguments here, we need to also pass where the SQLite server, which is this SQLite server, .py file where we have all of the tools function that are tools. Okay, that's the one thing you need to keep in mind. The other thing is you need to install Copilot for this to work, because once we have this set up, you can see I can go ahead and say start. Now you can see that this is running and it's showing a lot of things here. So I can say more, for instance, and I can stop the server, restart the server, show output, and all of that. Escape to escape. So this is running, as you can see here. Now, how do we use this to see this in action? Well, it's really simple. Again, you can go to Open Chat. So make sure you have Copilot, Open Chat. And you can see here, I have a few things. We have this tool here. I'm going to click, and then this is what it's going to open. So I can see all the tools. You have built-in tools. I can also close that. And I want to go to this MCP server, which is World MCP, which is exactly what we want. If you click here, you can see now we have access to all of those tools that we can use. Okay, you can uncheck or check them all like this to say we can use this as a tool. So now I can ask, making sure, of course, that for, let me get rid of this, so escape. Now making sure that you have this under agent, because we're going to use it agent, okay, for this to run, and it's using GPT-4. You can change to different models. I'm going to just use that one. That's okay. And here's what I'm going to do. So let me make this smaller or larger. And let's go ahead and start playing around with this. So now I can say something like this. Go get one of those questions we've done before and say how many countries are in the database. I'm going to run, and you can see it's going to start working. And once we do that, you can see now it's going to say run get database stats world MCP server. This is good, right? And gives us more information. So the actual description and the doc string, that is get statistics about the database contents. We're going to return a dictionary with counts of countries and all that. And this is good. So you're going to say you want to continue. So this again is part of security. So I'm going to say enter. And now we'll see what happens. So it says there are 250 countries in the database. If I open here, you can see exactly the results that we saw. So we have the input, nothing. That means we didn't have to add anything, right, as a parameter. And then we have the output, total countries and total cities and everything. But because we asked for the countries, it then wrote exactly what we want. So there are 250 countries in the database, right? I can say, for instance, how many states and sub-regions are there. Hit enter. Okay. Now you can say, well, what happens? It didn't actually run again. Well, because it ran before, you can see these results are still in memory. Okay. I can, for instance, say, again, find cities in Australia. I'm going to run. It should be able to invoke, indeed, look at this. So get cities in country. That is the tool from World MCP server, which is exactly what we want. And the country is AU, the country code. And I'm going to say yes. And it's getting all of these. Right? If you go in, you can see what ran. The output is exactly that. Okay, all these different cities for each one. And we got some information, longitude and latitude and all of that. I can go a little bit more comparative questions with this, right? What is the difference between regions and subregions? Run. Okay, so this one, it went just straight to the large language model to get that answer. That's okay, but let's try another comparative one that we did before and see how this will behave. Compare European countries with Asian countries. Okay, very good. So get countries by region. That is the thing that it needs to run. Say yes, continue. And finds region Asia, for instance, continue. Now we'll continue to work because it got those regions, and it's going to give us an overview. Europe has 50 countries, including all of that. So it gives us that nice answer. And I can even do some cross-referencing. Show me countries and their major cities. I'm going to run. You should invoke a tool or a few tools. And there you go. So you can see get country summary, and I'm going to say yes. And it goes ahead and wants me to get stats about the database contents. Okay, it wants to go ahead and continue here. I'm just say go. So it called get country summary, get database stats, and then get cities in country. So it got all this information. So here are some countries and their major cities. Look at that. Let's say again, this is so much fun. I'm going to say, what are the capitals of African countries? Let's run. And you know that indeed this is not looking at the large language model GPT-4.1. It's actually doing the research, actually searching the database using MCP server. And you know this because you can see that it picks up the MCP server and the tool that it needs. Okay, it got all of them. And if I go all the way here, you can see actually we got the region is Africa, for instance. For each region, we get another output and so forth. So it goes all the way and then got all this information, of course. And in the end, we got the actual large language model result. All right, so this is what I wanted to show you as an alternative to see how we're still using the same MCP server that we created. It's running locally, the same one that we used in Claude Desktop. We are also using here in this host here, which has the client that's compatible to also run and use the MCP server. But keep in mind, in order for this to work, you actually have to have Copilot installed, as you saw here, and be able to do a little bit of work when it comes to setting up the MCP JSON, and make sure to add the commands. And it's like you have to add the entire path where you have, in this case, we're just using Python 3. And for args, you're going to go and point to where the SQLite server, which is the actual project, right? The application per se, the code is located. And then you can run it. And from here you can see it's running. I can restart and I can stop. And tells you exactly how many tools we have, about 15 and so forth. So let's go ahead and stop, and that's stopped. And we're all done. All right, I hope this was helpful. Just keep in mind that you've just built something that most developers are still reading blog posts about. You actually went ahead and did something. You built something. And you should be very happy and proud of what you've accomplished in this video. Okay, so if you want to continue to build amazing AI applications with the community, I want to invite you to the AI Guild community, where we have weekly calls and you have access to me directly and other members of the community, so that you can actually build AI applications that are top notch. So thank you so much, and till next time, be well.